بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم ما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to fulfill His commandments, for choosing us to come to the Masjid and listen to the wa'al, the khutbah, and fulfill the salah of Salatul Jumu'ah. We ask and beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His best salutations and mercy upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family members, and those who follow his way till the Day of Judgment. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. As many of the community who stem from Bangladesh know, there's a very great scholar, Sheikh Saidi, Dalwar Saidi. He passed away, rahimahullah, after being incarcerated, put in prison for a very long time, and subject to many different forms of torture, etc. And it hurts the heart of every Bengali person, because almost everyone who comes from Bangladesh, they've grown up or at least listened to his speeches a great deal, and he represented something to many people, and that was speaking the truth. And there's this quote that he had. He said, "I'd rather live a moment as a lion than 500 years as a cat." And that's how he lived his life. And he would speak whatever truth, whatever Islam told a person to have, he would speak that irrespective of the consequences. And this is the sentiment of all of the ulama. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says in one hadith, "Al-ulama warathatul anbiya." The ulama and the scholars, they are the inheritors of the prophets. In what sense? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that the prophets alayhimu salatu wasalam, when they pass away, they don't leave inheritance. There's no wealth that they leave behind. There's actually a different type of inheritance. And in one hadith, Abu Hurairah, he comes to the people and he tells them, like in the marketplace, he tells them, come to the masjid, the masjid, excuse me. So the people in the marketplace, they're engaged in business. They're buying, they're selling. And he says the inheritance of nubuwah is being spread in the masjid right now, and you people are in the marketplace, right? You're trying to get all this wealth, but there's inheritance. And everyone who follows the ummah, who's a ummati, a follower of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're going to get some free inheritance. When you get inheritance, you don't have to work for it. So then people started rushing to the masjid. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's inheritance is being spread. When they come to the masjid, they see the hilaq al-dhikr, they see the gatherings of remembrance, they see ta'aleem taking place, knowledge of Islam being spread. So maybe they felt a little bit disheartened that we're not getting any monetary value by coming to the masjid. But Abu Hurairah told them, this is the inheritance that the prophets leave behind. It's not physical wealth that you buy and trade and you amass, but this is the wealth of the akhirah. If you want to have money, currency, and goodness in the akhirah, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, there is no mal, there's no currency other than a'mal. And so Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says in the hadith that the scholars of Islam, they are the ones that receive this inheritance from the prophets alayhi salatu wasalam. While you and I are busy earning wages, involved in the marketplace, gaining physical wealth, they're getting spiritual wealth, which will manifest itself on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And not only that, they get it and then they try their best to share it with us. And this is the sentiment of all of the ulama of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises them. Allah ta'ala chooses these people. Yes, it seems like they're born and they choose to go and tread that path, but ultimately Allah ta'ala is the one that guides them to that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts that love of ilm in their hearts. And their mission is to bring people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all they want. As the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wassalam in the Quran, in various verses of the Quran, they say that I seek no wages for my da'wah. I only seek that you come to Allah and His forgiveness. This is the sunnah of the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wassalam. They call people, they don't want anything from people. They're selfless. They want people to change their lives. And Sheikh Saidi was a great example of this. He wanted people to change their lives. He called people to the Quran and the Sunnah, and that's how he lived his life. He was not afraid of the consequences of calling people towards Allah. If something is haram, he's going to say it's haram. And if people don't like that, then they have to deal with it. So they subject him to various different aspects. But this is something that we have to understand. And some of us, we get fired up. We say that he was maghloom, he was oppressed, he was harmed. But while that is good, you can talk about these issues. Why not involve and imbibe in ourselves what he represented? His da'wah, his preaching, his goal in life was to make us come back onto the izzah of Islam. The strength, the power, the independence that Islam gives you. This is what he wanted people to have. And if we are just going to talk about different aspects and not really seek that independence that Islam gives us, then we're not doing much for him either. And all of the scholars that passed away, the greatest thing that we can do at this point is make dua for them. And the greatest thing that we can do is be a sadaqah jariyah for them. Right? If you actually practice on his speeches that he gave, numerous speeches, very beautiful and eloquent that he gave, mostly about the tafsir of Quran and different aspects, bringing people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loving Allah and his Rasul. This was his life. If you listen to some of those speeches and then there is some change that evolves in your life, some change that occurs in your heart, then he's going to get reward. He's going to be in his grave and he's going to receive that sadaqah jariyah. All of the tapes and records and things that he wrote and things that he preached, if people still benefit in today's time, he will be getting the rewards for that in his grave. As Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also tells us that sadaqah jariyah continues. This is a sadaqah that continues. Among them is ilmun alimahu wa nashara. Knowledge that a person gains and he spreads. So this person had a lot of knowledge. He spent a good chunk of his life gaining the knowledge of deen, putting it into practice, and then disseminating that. If you and I can benefit from that and we put it into practice, we will get the full reward, inshallah, and he will also continue to get that reward as long as we benefit from it. So this is very important that we realize the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And this is the gift of iman. And this is what the scholars preach. They want to strengthen our iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he commands us in the Quran to have this iman. The best thing that you and I can do, like I mentioned, is to strengthen our iman. And that is going to help these people. If we want to really discuss about his life, let us strengthen our own iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Understand, know, this is the object of your life. Believe that there is no one worthy of worship other than Allah. What are you and I doing to strengthen our iman? What are you and I doing to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the job of the scholars. Their whole life is pushing us towards this. And if we talk about all these different aspects of the scholars and not do the object of which they came for, then we're at loss. All of the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wassalam, they came with that same message. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونِي. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah says, anytime we sent a Rasul before you, addressing Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, anytime there was a prophet before you, we always told them, we gave them wahi, that there is no one worthy of worship except for me, so worship me, Allah says. Allah Ta'ala is saying to them. Every single prophet had this common aspect. And the ulama, they carry this aspect on in the ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. After Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there is no more prophet, there is no more wahi to come. As Ayman radiyallahu anha, she was very close to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, she was crying after Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed. Abu Bakr and Umar radiyallahu anhuma, they visited her and they tried to console her that we knew you were very close to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She knew Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when he was a baby. Ayman radiyallahu anha. She was a slave of Abdullah radiyallahu anhu and the father of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then she came into the inheritance of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well. So she was crying. They came to console her. And she said, I'm not crying over the loss of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That was meant to be. It was to come. I'm crying because of the loss of wahi. Jibreel alayhi salam will no longer come to the earth with wahi ever again. He will come on Laylatul Qadr. He has times when he can come down, but he will never bring the barakah of wahi ever again to the end of time. And so Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then tells us that there are no more prophets, but they are going to be something like the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. They're not Anbiya, but they're like them. They take the place of the Anbiya. And these are the ulama. So the ulama carry on this message of La ilaha illa ana fa'buduni. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message, there's no one worthy of worship but me, and follow me. No matter what the cost. That's their job. And if we want to support a certain scholar, we can support this message as well. And understand that our iman is our purpose in life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawat wa min al-ardi mithlahun yatanazzalu al-amru baynahun. Allah is the one who created the 7 heavens, He created the 7 earths, and He is the one that is taking care of them. At the last verse of Surah Al-Talaq, Allah says, He is the one that takes care of the heavens and the earth. Why does He do this? Why did He create you and me? Why did He create the heavens? He doesn't need it. If anyone thinks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs anything, their iman is at stake. Your iman is in danger. If you think Allah needs you, or He needs the heavens, the earth, the angels, Jannah, Jahannam, Allah needs nothing. He's absolutely independent. This is the being that we worship. He needs nothing. We and the entire creation need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He is the one that created the 7 heavens, the 7 earths, and He is the one that takes care of them. But why did He do that? لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. So that you may understand. Why did He create you? So that you may understand that Allah has power over everything. So that you may understand that Allah has knowledge over everything. When you look at the heavens and the earth, you look at the world, you look at how Allah created you, you look at everything in its perfect manner that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it. He didn't do it for any other purpose. He said, لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So that you may understand, you may reflect, you may do dhikr, you may obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the purpose. He doesn't need any of it. He doesn't increase, He doesn't decrease. That is the name of perfection. If something is perfect, it cannot increase. If something is perfect, it cannot decrease. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the only being that is perfect. And in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. The reason I created humans and jinn is only so that they may worship me. And worship is not just sujood. It's not just salah, zakah, saum. Everything, when we put our lives in accordance to the Quran and Sunnah, that's ibadah, that's worship. Again, this is what the scholars practice, and this is what they preach. And this is what you and I have to do as individual Muslims. This is the purpose of life. Know what Islam is telling you first. Know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Know who the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam were and what their mission was. Put that into practice. This is the khulasa, this is the purpose of life. Everything else is to aid that. Allah allows us to have jobs. Allah ta'ala allows us to have a family. Allah ta'ala allows us to have some fun, halal fun. But all of this is to aid the fact that we believe in Allah and we work for Allah. So if your job is given precedence over your ibadah of Allah, over you putting the ahkam of Islam in your life, then you've lost the track. You're in the wrong direction. You've become misguided. How many of us are involved in riba, in interest, in usury? How many of us are involved in selling alcohol, wine, things that is haram? How many of us are gaining money through haram means? Selling drugs, selling different kind of things, selling things that are going to create problems in society. When we do this, we have to realize what we've just done is we put our job above Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We put our source of income and our love of dunya and wealth over Allah. You may not say it. It's very bad if someone says it. They may lose their iman. But our actions display this. That something else is more important than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are not following these ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I created you so that you may worship me. Your job is to help you in worship. Your family is to help you in worship. If they're going to take you away from the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condones and what He allows. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises us, if we follow Islam, we follow the message of deen properly, we will be happy in this life. Irrespective of what you think happiness is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you true happiness when you put Islam into practice. A very beautiful verse in Surah An-Nahl, verse number 97. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Those who do good actions. What are good actions? The things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do in the Quran. Be kind to people. Deal with people in the proper manner. Be a family person. Have a good job. Pursue halal. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Avoid the haram. Those who do good deeds, irrespective of whether they are male or female. من ذكر أو أنثى, whether they're male or female, that doesn't matter. وهو مؤمن, on condition you have iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're doing good works. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. We're going to give them a very pure life, a life, a fulfilling life, a happy life. Allah is promising this in the Quran. If you want to be happy and you're just confused, how do I attain happiness? Where do we look for the answer? Do we look at people, what they're doing on social media? Do we look at people around us, those people who don't even have Islam and guidance? We look in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly saying it. He is the creator of life. He is the creator of me and you. He's created everything in existence. He is the one that is saying this. We don't need some kind of motivational speaker or some wisdom guru coming and telling us this is what you need to do to be happy. Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the perfect being, He's talking to you and I. He's saying, if you want happiness, He says, "Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha." Those who do good actions, be they male, be they female, as long as they have iman, belief in Allah and His Rasul, then indeed, definitely, the word here was so much emphasis. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ. Absolutely, definitely, without doubt, we will give them a very pure life. And in the hereafter, وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. We will give them the full reward of their best deeds. The things that they've done for us, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're going to have all of that in store in the hereafter. You have dunya and akhirah. Whereas if a person pursues only the dunya, they seek the pleasures of this life, they forget about La ilaha illa ana fa'buduni, that ayah that Allah says, there is no one worthy of worship but me, so worship me. They forget about that. They forget about the purpose of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wasalam, the inheritors of the prophets, the ulama, and what they came for, what they represent. And they pursue their desires. They pursue the life, this very transient and short life in dunya. They pursue that. Allah says, خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. They lose dunya and they lose the akhirah. They don't have either. And that's why some scholars, they say that the dunya is like your shadow. As long as you chase after the dunya, it will run away from you. You'll never have it. But as soon as you turn your back on it and you run away from it, it will chase you. The shadow will chase you. As Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was offered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mountains around Makkah, all of these can be turned to gold for you. You can have it. Everything you desire, you can have it. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I don't want it. I want to be in a state that I am completely destitute and requiring your rahmah and your mercy. He wanted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. He said, one day I want food so I can be shakir, I can be very thankful. The next day I want to be hungry so I can be sabir and have patience. He wanted all of the fruits of iman. He didn't just want good times like you and I. We just want good times. He wanted good times and sometimes a little bit difficulty so that he can express his patience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it will remind him of the good times that he had. And it will create even more shukr for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the message that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought. Take whatever you can of the dunya, but as much as will help you get to the akhirah. And we understand that without faith, our actions are not going to be accepted. This is the main purpose in life. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِنَ الصَّالِحَاتِ وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَلَا كُفْرَانَ لِسَعْيِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who do good actions and they have iman, their efforts will not be wasted. How sad it is. We're making all of these efforts. If you find someone who's involved in the stock market, they're investing, they're doing whatever they can, and then it crashes. all of that effort, years put behind a certain stock, and they lose everything. And that's why it's no surprise some of them commit suicide. And they see such a huge crash, everything gone, other people, investors' money all lost. They'll jump out of the building. How sad will it be that a person does so many good deeds thinking that they're pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only to see nothing in the akhirah. So if we don't have iman, if we don't have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is going to be our fate. And if we want salvation in the hereafter, we have to have iman. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, he says in a hadith recorded by Imam Muslim that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Man mata wa huwa ya'lamu annahu la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah." Very beautiful hadith. The condition, the prerequisite for you to go to Jannah, for you to be successful in life. This is the prerequisite. Very simple. If a person dies and they know and they believe and they have conviction that there is no one worthy of worship other than Allah, they will go to Jannah. That is a condition for you to enter Jannah. No one can go to Jannah without the kalima la ilaha illallah. Allah has made it forbidden for anyone who doesn't have the faith of iman to enter Jannah. The Sahaba, they would make a great amount of dua for increase in faith. How many times are we making a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase my iman? Are we even concerned about our state, our spiritual state with Allah? Are we concerned about our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Every single day something happens to us, a difficult time may come, something that worries us. What is the first thought that comes in our mind? I need help. Who do I go to? Do we make a dua at that time? There's many narrations of the Sahaba, I think it was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, anytime he needed even a lace, a shoelace, he would make the dua first. Allah, grant me what I need. And then he would seek it. How often are we making dua? Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he would make dua and he would say, Allahumma zidni imanan wa yaqinan wa fiqhan. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, such a great Sahabi, one of the greatest scholars of Islam, who is, the forerunner of one of the great madahib of Islam among the Hanafis. He was the one that went to Iraq and spread ilm over there. And he was known to be one of the best reciters in the ummah. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam even said once when they were traveling, him and some Sahaba, they heard a person reading Quran. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam stopped. It was nighttime. Couldn't see who it was. This person was in tahajjud reciting Quran. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam kept on listening to his recitation because it was perfect. His tajweed, everything was done absolutely the way Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam received it. And so then he found out that this was Abdullah bin Mas'ud. He told the people, if you want to recite the Quran the way I got it, then recite the way he's reciting. Abdullah bin Mas'ud. But this certain individual, who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said he's a faqih. Another incident with Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he was climbing a tree. He was very thin. He was short and very thin. That was his stature. So some of the Sahaba were warriors, very strong, muscular, tall. So they saw him climbing a tree, and they saw that his shin, his leg, was very thin. And this made them laugh. They were joking around with it because he was very thin. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam overheard, and he said that you're laughing at how small his shin is. Imagine like as thin as bones, and he wasn't very tall either. But on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that shin is going to be larger than Mount Uhud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to elevate him in such ranks that you, these large men, warriors amongst the Sahaba, you're going to be looking up to Abdullah bin Mas'ud. But did that change his disposition? Did he become complacent in what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised him? He would make dua, Allahumma zidni imanan wa yaqinan wa fiqhan. Oh Allah, please increase me in my iman. I don't know if I have enough. Increase my iman. Oh Allah, increase my conviction, my yaqeen. Oh Allah, increase my knowledge. Fiqhan. Oh Allah, increase my fiqh, my understanding of deen. These were the words of Abdullah bin Mas'ud in his dua. Someone who's already made it. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is already saying he's going to have his body is going to be very large because of his great stature. He recites Quran the way it was revealed. He's a scholar amongst the Sahaba, and he's making dua to Allah, begging Allah, oh Allah, I don't have knowledge. Oh Allah, my faith, I cannot rely on it. What do you and I have? Can we even recite the Quran? Can we even say that I have true iman and conviction in Allah? When those difficult times come, whatever it may be, whatever it looks like. Do I turn my gaze to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I lift my hands to Him first and foremost? Or is it, do I complain first? Do I look at my situation and start cursing or finding someone to blame? Rather than knowing that this is a test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent my way. This is what we need to do. We need to turn back to Allah. We need to gain conviction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jundum bin Abdullah, he was a Sahabi, radiallahu anhu. He said, we were with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We were young men. He was a young person with a bunch of his friends. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was there. It shows us that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would spend his time with the youngsters as well. He didn't he didn't think of himself as something too great. These people are too young. I cannot give them information. What would they understand? These are youngsters, probably teenagers, adolescents. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is with them. And Jundub radiallahu anhu, he said, فَتَعَلَّمْنَا الْإِيمَانَ قَبْلَ أَن نَتَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنِ. We learned from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Iman before we even started Qur'an. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would teach them the tenets of their faith. This is what you need to believe in. When you're in a difficult situation, this is how you turn to Allah. When you're making dua, wake up for tahajjud. This is how you perform the tahajjud. When you lift your hands, this is the method of dua. This is what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would teach them before they even started tafsir. Before they even knew how to read the Quran with tajweed, he says, "Ta'allamna al-iman qabla an nata'allam al-Quran." We learn iman first. Then after that, we learn Quran. ثم تعلمنا القرآن فازددنا به إيمانا. After we have mastered the tenets of our faith, after Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was happy with our progress in iman, he would then teach us Quran, and then our knowledge of Quran would grow tremendously. This is the foundation that you and I are missing. We learn Quran right away. I'm not saying don't learn Quran. Everyone needs to learn Quran, how to recite Quran. You're reading it every time in salah. However, with that, what is iman? How do I have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do I train myself so that when I undergo any kind of difficulty, my first thought is, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That's what we're supposed to say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran. The believers are those who, when they undergo difficulty, whatever it may be, the first thing that escapes their mouths and their lips is, we are indeed from Allah, we're going to go back to Allah. They're reminded of Allah first and foremost. What are you and I reminded of? We always try to blame someone. We always try to find the fault in someone else, whereas it may be in ourselves. But even before all of that, the first thought should be Allah. He is the one that caused this difficulty to come to my life. He is testing me. He's watching right now. What do I do? Each one of these, imagine they're a question on your exam paper, the exam paper of life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending you another question. And we have certain choices, a multiple choice. How do we react in that situation? The correct answer is to say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Turn back to Allah. But how often are we missing that? How often are we choosing some other answer? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also commanded the Sahaba, he says, Jaddidu imanakum. To people who already have iman. Even the youngsters amongst the Sahaba had very solid iman, faith in Allah. It would never waver. Still, he says to those people, Jaddidu imanakum. Renew your iman. Renew this iman that I've given, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. This is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's saying, renew it. Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, kayfa nujaddidu imanana? How are we going to do that? We have iman. We have faith. We say, La ilaha illallah. How do I renew this? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Akthiru min qawl la ilaha illallah. Continuously say, La ilaha illallah. Do the dhikr of La ilaha illallah. And what is dhikr? Many of us think it's just a phrase that we continuously say. Dhikr is not just something you do with the tongue. Your heart and your mind have to be involved in this remembrance. Right? Unfortunately, many people who do meditation, they have these mantras that they say, certain phrases. They've understood the concept of dhikr more than you and I. They're reflecting over this phrase, trying to absorb from the statement the sentiment that phrase has, and change their lives through it. People who are engaged in meditation. You and I have been given the greatest meditation, Quran and Hadith. And this dhikr of La ilaha illallah, when you say it, you have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're thinking there is no one worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what we need to do when we do the dhikr. Dhikr is a spiritual meditation. It's a spiritual medication from Allah and His Rasul. When you say La ilaha illallah and you're thinking about the meanings, you're thinking there's nothing that I need to worry about except for pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does La ilaha mean? There's no God. There's nothing in my life, nothing that I give my attention to. Not my job, not my family, not anything illallah except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when your sole focus and your niyyah becomes Allah, then you will see yourself proficient in your job. Then you will see yourself proficient in being a family person, because you know they have huquq and they have rights. But that's only when you realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my goal. When you say subhanallah and you're thinking of the meaning, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is grand. He's pure from any fault. This creates a grandeur of Allah in your heart. The reverence of Allah comes in our hearts. Then we're thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you say astaghfirullah, I seek Allah's forgiveness, you're thinking about your sins. You're not going to be proud, you're not going to be haughty or arrogant. You're going to have this effect of the dhikr in our lives. So the dhikr is a type of meditation, and it is a type of way to strengthen our iman. So this is one way that we can increase our iman. We have to think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to do continuous remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And most of all, remember that this life is very transient. It's going to finish soon. We're going to return to Allah. Just like many scholars, this is what their purpose in life was. They wanted us to follow the Quran and Sunnah, just like the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam. Very simple formula. Stay away from haram and do as much good as you can. And have iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're going to go to Jannah inshallah. This life is very short. Make the most use out of it. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the capability to worship Him, to avoid haram as much as we can, and to do as many good actions as we can. Sallallahu tabarak wa ta'ala ala khayri khalqi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya rahman rahmin.